section. In this section, I'm going to talk about how a Docker can be installed. We're going to look at the hardware and software requirements, how a Docker can be installed on Linux, and how to manage the container lifecycle using a Docker command. You can install any flavor of Linux. Just ensure that you have the kernel version as minimum 3.10. You also can install Docker on Microsoft Windows operating systems such as Windows 10, but you would need the Hyper-V software to be installed. The latest version of Windows Server 2019, supports the Docker to run natively without the need for you to have the hypervisor additionally installed. You also can install Docker on any of the cloud instances such as the Amazon, Google Cloud, or Microsoft Azure instances as well. When it comes to hardware requirement, as long as you can have one of these operating system installed and running, that's all you need. But when you have to decide on the hardware, you need to also decide on how many containers are you going to run. Just to have the Docker installed and test it, the bare minimum of hardware requirement can be good. 512 MB of RAM for your virtual machine with 1 gigahertz of CPU should also be fine. You can install the Docker via the distribution supplied packages on a virtually all of the distros, such as on the CentOS version of Linux, the Ubuntu, OpenSUSE, the Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Most of the Linux flavors supports running the Docker on those operating systems. You also can install the Docker by using the packages which are supplied by the Docker as an organization. You also have the Docker to install by the script that is provided by the Docker. If I just give a simple Google search, uh, get Docker, that should take me to the Docker's documentation, which will ask you, are you planning to install a Docker on a Mac machine or on a Windows machine or on a Linux machine? So if I go to the choice of Linux operating system, then it will ask you which flavor of Linux. In my case, I'm going with the CentOS. And there are a set of instructions that will help you install the Docker. If I choose the CentOS, it says use the yum command to install or a DNF command to install. If I choose the Ubuntu as my Linux operating system, it will say use the apt-get. So different flavors of Linux have a different package management tools, but mostly the packages will remain the same, what you install on any of this flavor. If you need to install on a Mac machine or a Windows machine, there are a set of instructions that you need to follow. Most importantly, you need to have a virtualization support for you to have this Docker installed, because behind the scene, it will create a VM, and in that VM, you'll have a Linux operating system running for you to leverage the Docker capability. And same goes to the Mac system as well, right? I'll have this URL pasted in a chat message for your reference, but I'll be using my own set of instructions for deploying the Docker. I have a VM created. On that VM, I'm going to install the Docker. I'll demonstrate how a Docker can be installed on one of the CentOS-based VM. You will have to install the package Docker or Docker CE if it is a community edition. In my case, I'm going to demonstrate installing the Docker CE. Then you need to enable the daemon, and then you need to verify the daemon that it is up and running. Once the Docker is installed, you can get the details of that Docker, what you have installed. You can also check the Docker version, and then you can run a container to test if the Docker installation has gone through. Let's continue to the lecture once we have the Docker installed first. So I'll be remote connected to that VM. which I just mentioned. That is the, let me show you the kernel version uname-r. This is 4.10, and this is being the CentOS version 8. So it has an IP address 192.168.100.10. So I'm going to connect to that using PuTTY software. I'll connect as root. Now I'll bring you the lab guide that I will use it for the demonstration of how to install the Docker. We're explaining what Docker is, and all of us have understood what Docker is. Now we want to take care of setting up the environment for the Docker to be installed. The very first thing we want to do is disable the SELinux. SELinux actually stands for Security Enhanced Linux, which is providing you the mandatory access control versus discretionary access control. We call it as a Mac versus DAC. SELinux operates in three modes: enforcing, permissive, and disable. By default, SELinux operates using the enforcing mode, which means the SELinux will be present. If I just run the command se status, SELinux is in enforcing mode. The other modes of SELinux is permissive and disabled. Disabled is very straightforward, where there is no SELinux. Permissive is used when you are getting started with SELinux and you don't know how to work with it. It will guide you, but it will not stop you from what you are trying to do. If somebody getting started with SELinux, you would want to work with the permissive mode, which will not prevent you from what you're doing. Instead, it will educate you what can be and what should be done. So there is a configuration file /etc/SELinux/config. In that, we can change the mode. The default mode is what? Enforcing. I just can go to insert mode and change the enforcing to disabled. Otherwise, I can just run this command, which is SED, which is a stream editor command, where I'm asking to substitute occurrence of enforcing with disabled in this configuration file, which will of course change that to disabled. And I don't want to immediately reboot my server. There are two modes that SELinux operates in. One is the mode from the config. The other one is mode from the current mode. So even the runtime mode, I want to change it to what? Permissive. And then let's verify the SELinux is now in the disabled from the configuration file and permissive from the current mode are in the runtime. So we just disable the SELinux is what a simple understanding. And then there's one more complexity. If you are new to Linux, there will be firewall D service running. So you should be good at how to work with the firewall to add the port exceptions for the containers that you create. If you're a beginner, and mostly we get the people who get started with the Docker are the mixed audience. So we advise them to disable the firewall D, but that is not recommended for production. You should learn how to work along with the firewall, because that provides you the operating system level security. So just to give a flexibility of somebody getting started with the Linux operating system and they don't know how to work with the firewall, we would recommend you to disable the firewall. Like I said, it is not recommended in production. You must learn how to work along with the firewall. Then we need to enable the IP forwarding feature to make our Linux server to act as a router, so that the Linux server allow a containers to be able to communicate. So the IP forwarding feature must be enabled. We want to add persistence to that setting that we are making. by running the command systemctl-p, or I can also use sysctl space dash dash system should also be fine. Now let's go ahead and verify if the IP forwarding feature is enabled by capturing the output from the sysctl-a. So as you see, it is enabled. The 1 indicates enable, 0 indicates disable. We see that IP forwarding is enabled. And ensure your server is updated with the latest packages. You have two options. One, either you can use the yum command, yum update-y, or you can use dnf update-y. Either of the command can be used to ensure your server is updated. The latest release of CentOS and Red Hat uses the dnf command, and very soon the yum command going to be deprecated. So once you have these updates, if there is the kernel getting updated, we would strongly recommend the server to be rebooted. Also, for the reason that I would disable the SULinux from the config mode, I would reboot my server very quickly. There's around 120 packages getting updated. So before we install any applications, we always recommend to ensure the server is updated with the packages. It would take a minute or two. Now I'm going to reboot my server. Once the updates are done, it would just come up quickly. Once it comes back, I will log in and verify what is the kernel version that I'm having, because you would need minimum of what? 3.10, or you may have CentOS 7 also installed. That will also be fine. In my case, I have the CentOS 8 installed. Let me try to restart and reconnect as root user. Let me verify the kernel version that we have. It is 4.18. Now, the latest version of CentOS coming up with the Podman and Buildah, or Podman as the container management tool. If it is there, we want that to be removed or uninstalled because we want to work with Docker. Podman is an competitor or alternate for the Docker. And there are many more alternative tools that are available for managing the containers. It says there's no Podman or Buildah currently present. Absolutely fine. Then we want to install the yumutils package for us to have the version locking capability. And I want to set up the repository from where we want to install the Docker packages. I'm setting up the Docker CE repository. What is CE? Community Edition repository. From that repository, I'm going to download a specific version of package of the Docker. I'm going to install the Docker version 3.19. And we will have to make a configuration directory because we want to override some default behavior of the Docker. It's taking a bit of time. A directory is created. I'm creating a configuration file daemon.json, which is what the Docker looks for by default, which will allow you to override the default behavior of the Docker. Here I'm trying to explicitly say use the cgroup driver as systemd daemon. There's additional directory that Docker would expect under /etc/systemd/system, the docker.service.d. Now we want to lock the version of the Docker so that if going forward, if you do a yum update, it should not pick up the updates for the Docker itself. So now if I do a yum update -y, it may pick up the packages update for the other packages except for the Docker, if any. Now we want to enable and start the daemon Docker. That's all, we are good. Let's verify the status of the Docker. There you go. Docker is active and running. Now we want to create a first container to verify a Docker installation has gone through. So Docker container run. We are not naming the container. Instead, we want to use the image called hello-world. If I go to Docker Hub, there is an image where the name what? Hello world. Okay. We want to use that image for creating a container, but we are not named the container. So it's going to pull that image from the Docker Hub by default. Now it is giving you a message, hello from Docker. This message shows that your installation appears to be working correctly. So this is just like a testing image. Is my installation has gone through or not? Right? That's all. Now you can have a Docker's created or containers created for your application. For a continuation of the demonstration, what I will do is I'll show you there's one container that we just created, which is now in the exited state, and why it is, I'll talk about it. And there's one image that got pulled during that container creation. The name of the image is Hello World. And if you want additional images to be downloaded, of course, we can search for an image and we can pull one of the image that we are interested in. So one other thing we know is when the containers are created, if the image is not locally present, that gets automatically pulled. Let's just go ahead and verify once the image is pulled, Docker image ls. So one for the container that we created, the one now what we just have pulled. Let's create a container out of that image. Docker container run detached interactive terminal. Use the image CentOS. If you want to name it, you just can say -- name and the name of the container that you want to give. So now there is two containers. The one that we named it, the other one that got randomly named. So if you don't name a container, the container will still be named with the two dictionary words divided by underscore and a random dictionary words. That is how the naming is. But otherwise, each container will also be given a container ID, as you can see. A Docker itself identifies these containers with the container ID, not the name. The container names just to help user identify those containers. But otherwise, Docker itself will use the container ID to identify those containers. Let's do a cleanup. We want to remove all of the containers. of course, we also want to remove all of the images that we pulled as part of this demonstration. So we did a cleanup. Let's confirm there are no containers and there are no images as we have cleaned up. Okay, let's go back to the lecture. There are three more commands that we want to work with. The one we worked is we created a hello world based container. Now let's verify the Docker version and also a different information that we need to know about the Docker. If you run the command docker space version, currently we're dealing with the Docker client version 19 and the Docker server version, our engine version also 19. In Docker architecture, there are mainly two components. The Docker engine, which is managing the lifecycle of the container, and the Docker command, the Docker client. Okay, there is a Docker engine server, there is a Docker engine client. All the Docker commands that you're running is with the help of what? A Docker client. All the activities of creating containers, starting, stopping is done by the server. So Docker info will give you detailed information of there are totally how many containers you have, how many running, how many paused, how many stopped, how many images do you have, the server version, what storage driver are you using, what logging driver are you using, what secret driver are you using. So it has all of that information. And everything about the Docker containers will be stored in this directory. Okay, if I say ls of this directory, there are many subdirectories. So all the containers consume the storage space from this location. The images will be stored here. The containers will be stored here. The networks will be created here. The volumes will be created here. Everything about the Docker containers will go under varlib docker, which is the Docker root directory. If you migrate your Docker based applications or container based application, you generally migrate this storage. Right now, this particular directory is a standard file system, but it can be backed by a different storage solution. So when you install the Docker package, there will be a couple of configuration files that will come up. RPM-QC and the name of the package will show you those configuration files. The important configuration file what we created manually is daemon.json, which will allow you to change the behavior of the Docker. One of the setting that we want to change is you may come up with the question, hey Naushad, we want to change the default behavior such as we don't want the Docker to pull the images from the Docker hub, but we want a Docker to pull the images from our internal registry. Is that something doable? Yes. Stop the Docker daemon, add an entry to /etc/docker/daemon.json. Provide the URL of the registry from where you want the images to be pulled, and then start the daemon. This is one configuration change that you want to make. Second, hey Naushad, as you told us that all of the data about the Docker will go under varlib docker. What if that is full, or what if I want to change the location? Stop the Docker daemon, provide the new or custom path information into that JSON file, the daemon.json, and migrate your existing data if you wish from the varlib docker to a new location, and rename your old location so that Docker doesn't look for that, and start your Docker daemon. Then Docker will reference to what? A new location which you have pointed to read and write the information about the Docker. I explained you under varlib docker, there are multiple directories. Let me run the command tree to varlib docker. There are multiple directories and files inside that. So I already demonstrated installing the Docker. The next demonstration going to be how do we manage the container lifecycle using a Docker command, how to create a container, how to start, stop, pause, unpause. I'm going to demonstrate that. There are mainly 4 commands that you want to know when it comes to Docker. Docker container to manage the containers, Docker image to manage the images, Docker network to manage the networks, Docker volume to manage the volumes. These commands are there when you do a Docker dash dash help. Let me show you that. If I just run the command Docker dash dash help, there are many commands that you use to run, and these commands going to be deprecated. Instead, this is the command that are recommended to use, the management commands. Let me take this information to the notepad. And within this, we are very much interested about working with the Docker container, working with the Docker image, working with the network and a volume. These are main 4 commands that we want to work with. Now, what if I want to know more about Docker container command? So you just can type Docker container dash dash help. So these are the commands that you can use for the container management. Docker image dash dash help. These are the commands available for you to manage the images. Docker network dash dash help. The network specific commands. Docker volume dash dash help. The volume specific commands. So you don't need to memorize everything. So Linux provides you manuals and help to know the commands. So we don't recommend in Linux to remember the commands. Instead, learn the art, how to get the help and learn the commands. So I'm going to bring you the lab guide for managing the lifecycle of a container. Let's do that. So right now I don't have any images and I don't have any containers. Right. So in this lab, I'm going to demonstrate how to manage the lifecycle of a container. First, the Docker container ls will list you if there is any container or containers. Let's go ahead and create a container. How to create it? Docker container create and the name of the image to use. As it understands there is no image by the name nginx locally present, it's going to pull that image from the Docker Hub by default. Once that is created, let's go ahead and run the command docker container ls. But you don't get to see a container though we created one. The reason is Docker container ls will show only the containers which are in the up state. If the container is not in up state, it is not going to show you. If you want to see a container or containers which are not in up state, you have to additionally use the option -a, include all. Now you see the container in the created state. It is not in the up state. And because we did not name the container, it got some random name. There was Raman, some dictionary random words. Now let's learn how to name a container. Docker container create with the name web01 using an image nginx. And let's list out that container. Even this container is not in up state, so we need to use the -a option with the ls. So now instead of getting some random name, it has got the name web01 as we wanted that to be web01. And the containers can be started by running the command docker container start and the name of the container. Now when you do docker container ls, there is a container which is in the up state, which we just started. So docker container ls will only show the containers which are in the up state. If you want to see the containers which are not in the up state, you have to use an extra option -a, include all. Now I've been demonstrating the command docker container run, isn't it? Docker container run and the name of the container server01 and the image that I want to use. The image will be pulled because this is the first container that we are using a image CentOS. Now when I do docker container ls, I get to see that container in up state. No, why? Because that has got into the exit state. Let's go ahead and check with the option -a. So there is a container named server01, which is in the exit state. Now, if I wanted that container to be in the up state, I will have to use an extra option -dit, detached interactive terminal. Let me name it as server02. Now when I do docker container ls, I'll get to see the server02 is in the up state, not exited. The reason why server01 was in the exit state is because inside the container server01, there was no activity, meaning it was doing nothing. So by default, containers are designed to only run when there is anything to run inside. Otherwise, the containers are supposed to go in the exited state. If you want to explicitly make them run, even if you don't, or if you're not doing anything inside the container, you need to say provide the interactive terminal. The -d here is detached or demonized. IT is the interactive terminal. So you said detached or demonized. What if I create one more container, server03, but I do not use D option? The container will get created and you will be inside the container. If you don't want to see yourself inside the container is when you use an extra option called -d, detached. Okay, you can come out of the container and you can attach again docker container attach and the name of the container server03, for example, right? Or you may want to go to the container server02. Absolutely possible. Attach. The D is detach. That means do not take me inside the container. So to continue the flow that I'm demonstrating, let me go ahead and remove the container, docker container rm. The name of the container server02 and server03 that I want to remove. Okay. So if I do not use the -d option, so the container will be created and I will be inside the container. I can run the commands inside the container and I can exit from the container. But now the container will go in the exit state because I typed the command exit. Because I've typed the command what? Exit. As you can see, the container 02 will be in the exited state. Now, what if you want to come out of the container, leaving the container in a up state? Let's understand that. Let's just go ahead and create a third container. Docker container run with the name server03. detached interactive terminal. Use the image CentOS. Now, when you check container ls, the server 03 container should be in the upstate as you have used the -did. Let's go inside the container. Docker container attach server 03. Run a couple of commands just to verify. If you want to come out of the container, leaving the container in upstate, you need to press the key combination Control P, Control Q, Control P, Q. Okay, Control P, Control Q to come out. So the container now will continue to be in the upstate. If you type exit, the container will go in the exited state. Remember that. Now, can I run the commands? For example, just imagine you wanted to get inside the container just to run the command cat/etc/resolve.conf. And then you came out of the container pressing Control PQ. If that was the only reason why you wanted to go inside the container, why don't you run the command exec? Instead of attach, run the command exec. And what command you wanted to run inside the container? The cat command. Run it from the engine itself. You don't need to go inside. That is the recommended method. We don't generally always get inside the container. Instead, we want to execute commands inside the container. So Docker container exec, the name of the container, and what command do you want to run? It can be not only cat command, it can be any command that you want to run. Right? Can I rename a container? Of course, you can rename it. Docker container rename. The current name is server 03. We want to rename it as server 003. So Docker container ls will show you it's been renamed to server 003. Can I pause a container state? Docker container pause. Anything that you want to do with a container should be Docker container, right? So if you check the status of the container now, that will be in the upstate, but it is been paused. Of course, we can unpause. Why you want to pause, if at all? You don't want any operations to happen on that container application is when you think of pausing. And once you are decided to bring that back, you do a unpause. We can stop a container. Right. And when you check the status, it says it is in the stopped. Wait a minute. So which container? It will not show in the ls unless we have to use what? -a. The server 03 container is now in the exit state, but the exit code is what? 0. That means graceful. Can we start that again? Yeah, of course we can just do a Docker container start. And now the container will be in the upstate. The restart is basically a combination of a stop and start. If you want to, you can do that as well. We can verify what is running inside the container, running the command docker container top. It will show you the activity of what processes are running inside. You can check the stats of the containers to understand how much of the resources the containers are consuming. Okay, what's the name of the container, how much of CPU utilization, memory utilization, network IO, block IO, all that is doable. The other command is no stream, Docker container stats -- no stream, meaning you don't want to keep receiving what? Output every 2 seconds. It's like a watch command. But if you say no stream, it will give you a snapshot, a screenshot of the current state, but it will not continue to show you those stats live stream. If you want to check the logs, you can check the logs. Docker container logs, the name of the container, which will show you what are the activities that we performed inside the container. So I see some of you raised your hand. I appreciate you if you hold your question, take a note of those questions, and I will ask each of your question. I'll answer. I'll guarantee that I will answer your questions before we end the session today. Thank you for understanding. Then Docker container name. Can I expose my application to be externally accessible? So that can be done using the -p option. Docker container run with the name web02, detached interactive terminal, expose on the host using the port number 80 and the container port is 80. So now I will identify the IP address of my host, which is 192.168.100.10. I open up the browser and I can access my container application. But I must mention what port number that I'm exposing that application. There you go. I can access my container application even from outside using the host IP address. I can access the application within the engine also. In that case, I can use the container IP address. What is the name of the container? Web02 Docker container inspect and name of the container. That will give me the IP address. Using that IP, I can do a curl. Here I don't need the port number because the default port happened to be 80. I can do a curl here also using the host IP address. 192.168.100.10, but port number 8080. This is how you can expose your containerized application to be externally accessible. I was being very particular about on which port my application to be exposed on the host. It can also be a dynamic port. In that case, you have to use capital P as an option. Docker container run with the name web03 -dit, which stands for detached interactive terminal, a dynamic port, capital P. Small p is for a static port, capital P is for the dynamic port. Now, to understand or to verify what port is it being exposed, I can capture that information by running the command docker container inspect, the name of the container. I'm only interested with the lines which has the pattern host port and IP address. So this is the IP address that container has got. I can just do a curl. If you want to access this application from outside, this is the dynamic port. Hold on a second, it did not print me. Okay, my bad. It's supposed to be web03. Okay, this is the IP address of the container. And this is the dynamic port what is generated. In the lab guide, this step it's supposed to be 3. So let me take that dynamic port and try to browse it from the browser outside. http:// the engine IP address or Docker server IP address colon the dynamic port. There you go. We can access it. Okay. So we also can access from the local system. Curl 192.168.100.10 colon the dynamic port. So if you want to know how much of the storage space each of the container might have taken, The extra option that you have to use is what? -S along with the A. It will show you how much of the disk space each of the container has taken. As you can notice, it is just in bytes and KBs because we have not stored any real data inside those containers. We can kill a container if in case. The difference between the stop and the kill is kill uses the signal number 9 and stop uses the signal number 15. Signal number 15, a stop, basically a graceful termination. Ordered termination, but not the kill. Even if you pay attention on the ls-a, you can see the container in exit state, but the exit code is not 0, which means it was not good, ungraceful. If there are any containers which are not in up state, you want to clean them up, you can use the command docker container prune. That will clean up all of the containers which are not in a up state. Of course, it's going to ask you a confirmation, but now when you do a docker container ls-a or ls, it will only show you the containers which are in up state. So by running the command docker container prune, you cleaned up all of the containers which were not in up state. You can stop and then you can remove the container is a right order. You can actually do a docker container RM forcefully, but the right order is to ensure you stop the container before you remove the container. Otherwise, forcefully remove the container. Now we will not have any containers as we have cleaned up. There's one I think that I created additionally, nginx based. That can also be cleaned up. Right. And if at all anything still left out, we can run this command, which will clean up everything. It error because there are no containers to clean up. That is expected.